Have you ever wondered what the Romans called Scotland? This is a question that takes us back to a time when the Roman Empire was at its zenith, expanding its reach across vast territories. When the Romans first set foot in the northern parts of Britain, they found a land that was as beautiful as it was challenging. This land, which we now know as Scotland, was given a distinct name by the Romans: Caledonia. Caledonia, a term derived from a Pictish word possibly meaning hard or tough people, was a name that resonated with the Romans' encounters with the locals. This rugged, mountainous region was a far cry from the familiar terrains of Rome, presenting a unique set of challenges for the empire's expansion efforts. So, the Romans called Scotland Caledonia, but why did they not conquer it? After all, the Roman Empire was known for its vast territorial conquests. Stay tuned as we delve deeper into this fascinating chapter of history. The Roman Empire was known for its vast conquests, so why not Scotland? This is a question that has intrigued historians and enthusiasts alike for centuries. The Roman Empire, during its zenith, stretched across the Mediterranean and well into Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. It was an empire that, at its peak, included over 2 million square miles of territory. From the arid deserts of Africa to the cold, unforgiving forests of Germania, the Romans had set foot everywhere. Their appetite for conquest and expansion seemed insatiable. But let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture. The Romans were not just conquerors, they were also great administrators. They built roads, aqueducts, and cities. They established a legal system and a military structure that are still studied today. Their aim was not just to conquer, but to Romanize. They wanted to bring their way of life, their culture, and their civilization to the corners of the world. So, what about Scotland? On the face of it, Scotland, or Caledonia as they called it, must have seemed like an attractive prospect. It was a land of rich natural resources with fertile soil and abundant fisheries. It was a land that could potentially add to the wealth and prosperity of the Roman Empire. But Scotland was not just a land of resources. It was a land of mystery and intrigue. It was a land of fierce and independent people. It was a land of challenging terrain, with its rugged hills, deep lochs, and dense forests. It was a land that presented a unique set of challenges to the Romans. The Romans had their sights set on Scotland, but it was a land like no other they had encountered. And as they would soon discover, it was a land that would test the limits of their abilities, their resolve, and their ambition. Scotland, or Caledonia, was not an easy territory for the Romans. The land was wild and untamed, a stark contrast to the manicured gardens and orderly city streets of Rome. The Romans were a civilization that thrived on order and predictability, but Caledonia was anything but predictable. The geographical challenges posed by the rugged landscape of Caledonia were immense. The Romans, who hailed from the Mediterranean region, were not accustomed to the highlands, the deep lochs, and the thick forests that characterized much of Caledonia. This terrain was difficult to navigate, making it challenging to establish supply lines, build roads or forts, and deploy troops effectively. In addition to the challenging terrain, the weather in Caledonia was harsh and unpredictable. The Romans were used to the warm, sunny climate of the Mediterranean. The cold, wet weather of Caledonia was a shock to their system. The frequent rain and fog could make visibility poor, hampering the movement of troops. The cold could be biting, particularly in the winter months when snow and ice could make the terrain even more treacherous. The unpredictable weather also affected the Romans' ability to grow crops. The short growing season and poor soil quality made it difficult to produce enough food to sustain a large military force. This meant that the Romans had to rely heavily on supplies brought from other parts of the empire, which could be a logistical nightmare. The Romans were also challenged by the lack of established infrastructure in Caledonia. There were few roads or cities, and the ones that did exist were not built to the same standards as those in the Roman Empire. This made it difficult for the Romans to move troops and supplies around the territory, further complicating their efforts to establish control. In sum, Caledonia presented a formidable challenge to the Romans. The harsh terrain was a significant challenge, but it was not the only one the Romans faced. The weather, the lack of infrastructure, and the difficulties in establishing supply lines all combined to make Caledonia a tough nut to crack for the Romans. The people of Caledonia were a formidable force. This statement carries a weight of truth that resonates deeply when we delve into the history of this resilient group. The Scottish tribes, as they were, presented a significant challenge to the Roman Empire, a force that had, until then, seemed invincible. The Caledonians were not a singular tribe, but a confederation of many, each with its own unique strengths and strategies. They were known for their fierce resistance, a characteristic that was deeply ingrained in their culture. They held a strong belief in liberty and freedom, values that fueled their defiance against the Roman invaders. Their fighting techniques were an amalgamation of their unique cultural practices and the harsh landscape they called home. The Caledonians were masters of guerrilla warfare. They would take advantage of the dense forests and rugged hills of their homeland, using these natural features to launch surprise attacks on the Roman forces. The Romans, used to open field battles, found this style of combat disorienting and incredibly challenging to counter. But the Caledonians were not just warriors. Their society was rich and diverse, with a deep reverence for nature and spirituality. They were skilled farmers, hunters, and artisans, creating intricate jewelry and weaponry that still inspire awe today. Their culture was rooted in community and kinship, and they held a deep respect for their elders and leaders. The Caledonians were also known for their fierce loyalty to their kin and tribe. This loyalty extended to their allies as well, and the tribes would often unite against common enemies, presenting a united front that was daunting to any invader. In the face of the Roman Empire, one of the most powerful forces of the ancient world, the people of Caledonia stood firm. They held their ground, defending their land and their freedom with a fierceness that left an indelible mark on history. The people of Caledonia were fierce and fearless, making their land difficult to conquer. Their spirit of resistance and their love for their homeland shaped the course of Scotland's history, a testament to their enduring legacy. In response to the challenges, the Romans came up with a unique solution. They decided to build a barrier, a physical demarcation that would denote the limits of their empire. This monumental structure was what we now know as Hadrian's Wall. Hadrian's Wall was not just your average stone and mortar construction, it was a colossal feat of engineering, stretching approximately 73 miles from coast to coast across the northern edge of present-day England. The wall was reportedly built under the reign of Emperor Hadrian, around 122 CE, hence the name Hadrian's Wall. But what was the purpose of this enormous barrier? The Romans had a twofold objective in mind. First, it was a defensive structure, a fortification meant to keep out the unruly tribes of Caledonia. It was peppered with forts, mile castles, and turrets, providing a stronghold for Roman soldiers. The wall served as a formidable deterrent to any tribe thinking of invading the Roman territory. Secondly, the wall was a symbol, a statement of Roman power and engineering prowess. It was a clear-cut assertion that the Romans were here to stay, a testament to their might. Yet it was also a tacit acknowledgement of their limitations. The wall marked the northernmost boundary of the Roman Empire in Britannia. Beyond it lay territories they could not, or perhaps chose not to, conquer. Hadrian's Wall was more than just a physical barrier, it was a psychological one as well. It sent a clear message to the tribes of Caledonia. This is where Rome ends. It was a tacit admission of the Romans' inability to subjugate the fierce and resilient Caledonians, a people who refused to bend to the will of the mighty Roman Empire. Hadrian's Wall marked the boundary of Roman territory, a clear indication that they had given up on conquering Scotland. A testament to Roman ambition and its limitations, the wall stands as a silent witness to the Roman struggle in Caledonia, their hopes, their fears, and ultimately, their acceptance of the indomitable spirit of the Scottish people. Despite not conquering Scotland, the Romans left a lasting legacy. Their influence permeated through various aspects of Scottish life, from culture to architecture and trade, leaving indelible marks that are still evident today. When we speak of culture, the Romans introduced a new way of life to the indigenous tribes of Scotland. They brought with them their Latin language, Roman law, and a wealth of knowledge in various fields such as engineering, astronomy, and medicine. The ripple of this cultural infusion is still felt today, in the form of Latin-derived Scottish legal terms and the Roman-inspired architecture that dots the Scottish landscape. Speaking of architecture, the Romans were renowned for their engineering prowess, and Scotland was no exception to their architectural influence. The Antonine Wall, a turf fortification stretching nearly 40 miles from the Firth of Clyde to the Firth of Forth, stands as a testament to Roman engineering. Though not as well preserved as its southern counterpart, Hadrian's Wall, the Antonine Wall marked the northernmost frontier of the Roman Empire, signifying their influence and reach. In addition to architecture, the Romans had a profound impact on trade. They introduced new trade routes and goods, including fine pottery, glassware, and wine, which were previously unknown in Scotland. This influx of goods and ideas not only enriched the local economy, but also spurred cultural exchange and innovation. The legacy of Roman trade is evident in the rich archaeological finds scattered across Scotland, bearing witness to a time of vibrant interaction and exchange. The Romans might have failed in their attempts to conquer Scotland, but their influence was far-reaching and enduring. The cultural, architectural, and economic imprints they left behind have shaped Scotland into what it is today, a vibrant blend of ancient traditions and modern advancements. In this sense, the Romans did not need to conquer Scotland to leave their mark. Their legacy is etched into the fabric of Scottish society. The Roman influence in Scotland is still visible today despite their failure to conquer it. So why didn't the Romans conquer Scotland? If there's one thing we've established, it's that the Romans were no pushovers when it came to expanding their empire. They had the military prowess, the strategic minds, and the sheer determination to bring vast tracts of land under their dominion. Yet Scotland, or as the Romans called it, Caledonia, was a different story altogether. The reasons are multifaceted. Looking back at the earlier segments of our discussion, we've seen that the terrain in Caledonia was a major stumbling block. The highlands and the wetlands were a far cry from the smooth plains the Roman legions were accustomed to. The inclement weather added another layer of difficulty, with cold, wet conditions proving a challenge for the invaders, but the land was just one part of the equation. The people of Caledonia, the Picts, were a formidable adversary. Their guerrilla warfare tactics, their knowledge of the local terrain, and their fierce determination to defend their homeland made them a tough nut to crack. Then there was the matter of resources. Maintaining an army in such a hostile environment was not a financially viable prospect for the Romans. The cost of keeping troops in Caledonia, coupled with the lack of economic benefits, tipped the scales against a full-scale Roman invasion. And let's not forget the strategic perspective. The Romans had to contend with threats on multiple fronts. Expending resources on a difficult and potentially unrewarding conquest in the distant north might have left them vulnerable elsewhere. So, while the Romans certainly made their mark in Scotland with the Antonine Wall standing as a testament to their presence, they never fully subjugated the land or its people. While the Romans called Scotland Caledonia, it remained a land they could not conquer, a testament to the resilience of its people and the harshness of its terrain. Scotland's history is rich and complex, with its interactions with the Romans being a fascinating chapter. The tale of Caledonia, the Roman name for Scotland, is one of resistance and resilience. It is a testament to the spirit of a people who held their ground against one of the most formidable empires in history. This tale, like many others in history, is not just a sequence of events. It's a complex web of interactions, decisions, victories, defeats, and enduring legacies. And it's this complexity that makes history so intriguing. The story of Scotland and the Romans is but one thread in the vast tapestry of human history. So let's continue to unravel the mysteries of the past, to delve deeper into the stories that have shaped our world. Let's continue to learn, to question, and to explore. For in doing so, we gain a greater understanding of who we are and where we come from. Scotland, or Caledonia as the Romans called it, remains a captivating part of history, a land that even the mighty Romans could not conquer. Thank you for joining us on this historical journey.